Welcome to Boomhauer69 channel, and today Boomhauer's gonna show a product here that got me into vintage technology. This, what I'm gonna show you here, is simply 8-track cartridges. This is a storage box for 8-track cartridges. These right here. And here's another case I got here. I got two cases. There's simply 8-track cartridges. Now, as a kid growing up, my father owned 8-tracks. He was part of the 8-track generation. He was alive back when 8-tracks was the format before cassettes, and all you had was vinyl records and 8-tracks. And this is what got me into our vintage technology, seeing these, wondering how these work, and my dad showed me how they work and stuff, or I simply just watched him and figured it out on my own. But basically, 8-track cartridges came out in '63. William Powell Learjet, founder of Learjet Corporation, basically from a quick Google search and Wikipedia, he was looking for a format, some sort of way to play music in his jet, and along with Ampex, Ford Motor Company, General Motors, Motorola, and RCA, he got with all of them, and in 1963 they designed the 8-track cartridge. I'll put a link in the description for the whole Wikipedia thing on it. I did a quick little Wikipedia search, and so that's how 8-tracks, a little bit of history of how 8-tracks came about. William Powell and Learjets and Motor Company all came up with it. And simply, it was just, cars were a thing now, and people wanted to be able to listen to their own music on the go, so they decided to create this. And then first, from what I read online, I think it was first marketed, they made players first for automobiles, that was the thing, and then later on they started making players for the home market as 8-tracks became more popular with people. People started to realize how portable handy, so they made players for the car market and home market, and then they also made little portable boom box like I have somewhere around. I have one with pants on, which they didn't make very many, I guess, portable 8-tracks. It was mostly just making 8-track players for cars and home stereos, stuff. They didn't make too many portable 8-track players out there. Like, there was a few companies that made a few portable models, but not very many from what research I've done. But this is basically what got me involved into wanting to learn about vintage technology, Seeing my parents, both of my parents, my dad was born in '57, my mother was born 1958, and they were all part of the 8-track generation, the CB generation and stuff. And that's just simply what got me into liking the technology of yesterday. And also over here, I'll show you one. I also have a small collection of 78 vinyl records. Now, my collection of vinyl records, of 78 vinyl records, and old 8-track cartridges, they're not a highly mint condition collector set. All they are is just ones you throw on the record, ones that you throw in the music player and you play the music, They're just I call it playable condition, where you just play them and you don't worry about beating them up, scratching up. Well, you can see right here, this one's all and so, but that's what got me into vintage technologies, learning how record players were, 8-track, CB radios, technology from my parents' generation is what got me kind of more into being fascinated with vintage technology, and then I thought, man, it'd be cool to learn more about history. And that's one of the things why I like doing this YouTube video, because I hopefully down the line can find some more vintage technology that I always wanted, and be able to have the money to purchase it and do videos about it and stuff. So, but there's a little bit of history of how I kind of got into liking the vintage electronics of yesterday and modern day electronics. Makes I was always curious about how certain things work and stuff. I was the kid that you had to be careful when I was younger because I was the kid that could damage stuff real easy, not knowing how it worked and tried to play it myself. Big thing my father taught me was records. I remember records. Vinyl records was I think vinyl records were the first thing that I learned. And then years later I got to more like in actual 8-track formats. And I, as a kid, was part of the cassette tape generation, but for those who don't know, 8-track cartridges, these right here, were what people had before cassette tapes. Again, William Power from Learjet founder wanted a format for his player, and then Ford Motor Company, he went to Ford Motor Company, General Motors, Motorola, RCA. There's a whole thing about it on Wikipedia. The one guy that helped design it. Basically, from what I read on Wikipedia, it was like the 8-track was already kind of like already invented by somebody, from my understanding, and Learjets and Motorpacks, Ampex, and Motorola and RCA just figured out how to make it more better, and then they kind of marketed at first for the car market. Yep. Because the home market at that time had 33 long playing records and 78s and vinyl records, so they wanted something for the car market, to simply plug into a radio, and a lot had to do with it. The founder, Learjet, she wanted something to play in his airplane, I guess, from one little quick Google search. But basically, from the Wikipedia link I'll put in the description where you can read all the history on that stuff. Basically, it was simply to create some music format to play in the car market. Then when people started getting them in the cars, people decided, hey, I want something I want to be able to play 8 tracks in my home. And then I think it was RCA was one of the first ones to make a home console player, a player for the home market. And then later on, there were some other companies, like I have a Panasonic portable 8-track player, and Panasonic made a few portables, and there were some other companies. I think even Tandy made a portable model, but Tandy Corporation made their version of a home 8-track cartridge, so a realistic. Actually, the very first 8-track cartridge player I ever seen personally, my father had a realistic art Radio Shack, Tandy Corporation realistic, the clarinet stereo, they used to call it clarinet. It was, I think, called a Clarinet 98. And that was a record player with AM for the home market. It was a record player. It played 33s, 45s, 78s. And it had an AM FM radio on it. And then it also had a slot where you could play 8-track cartridge. It was one of those. I had it for a long time, even after my dad passed away. But I ended up throwing it out because simply the record player was no good, and you couldn't get parts for it to repair the record player, because the record player had, after many years of use, took a poop. And the only thing that really actually worked out was the AM and FM radio, and the 8-track player on it did play, but it skipped tracks, because that was one of those where you would simply slide in an 8-track. It would play, but sometimes it was automatically skip tracks, because 8 tracks have different, like you see here, different what they call tracks, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And so on the Radio Shack record player that my dad had with the 8-track player on it, which was the first one I ever used or seen, it would go from like 1 and skip 2 and then go to 3, and it was goofy, but it did play. It wasn't eat a tape. It still played, but you'd have to go back and manually select. It had a manual, I guess called override button, where you'd have to go back and manually. And I just figured, you know what, since Because I remember it was something where at one time my dad actually, I think, looked into getting the record player fix on it, and at the time Radio Shack stores were still around, and my dad went and by then, that time, this was like in the, I think, later 90s, early 2000s, and Radio Shack was like, yeah, you can't get parts for it, and basically told him it wasn't worth fixing, and then when I thought about it, I by the time I kind of got it and thought about it, it's like, yeah, it ain't worth, so I just kind of threw it out because I don't have the space to store it, so I just basically threw it in the trash because it wasn't worth it. But that's what got me into kind of the whole electronic phase. And then when I was a kid, I also had my first computer was a Tandy computer at home, and in school I learned on the old Apple Macintosh LLC2s, the old Apple computers. There's in school. That's what also got me into technology and a lot of electronic stuff is simply learning computers in school, and then at home having a Tandy 1000, I think it was RX or RL, the one that had both 3.5-inch floppy drive and then the big 5 1/4 little floppy drive and stuff. And that's what all in all, and remembering that's what developed this passion for technology. But biggest thing is I'm into the vintage technology. Now even the technology from the 90s and basically on back is what I really love. So hopefully someday I'll be able to purchase some more vintage technology. Even if I lived out in the country, I'd even try to find vintage farm equipment and learn about that and stuff too. So yeah. Well, that's what kind of got me started into liking the vintage stuff, technology. It's simply just learning the technology of my parents' generation and stuff and becoming fascinated with that. So hope you like this sort of content. Hit that red subscribe button down below to help Boomhauer69 and growing this channel. Hope you all have a good day. Don't forget to comment below your thoughts on this video. If you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. Comment your thoughts if you thought this video was good, bad, whatever. Hope you enjoy this video, and I hope you all have a good day, and thank you for watching.